So we're doing everything right on our end. So I guess while that somehow loads, how's everyone's Tuesday night going?
Hello, children. I'm fine. How are you guys?
Cold.
Tuesday's going well. I bet. It's so warm in my room, Brady. I had to open a window.
Yeah, but like it still says waiting here on mine, so I'm not really sure.
Yeah, so Brady, why don't we try to figure out what's going on? I think, what is that, a lighter?
It's a lighter. It's the only thing I can do to keep warm. I haven't had
You
power
should stick it in your pants.
I haven't had power in 36 hours, so I'm doing everything I can to keep warm. To light a candle for tonight's show, just get myself in the mood.
Brady, I just checked. We are officially live, so I guess there was a problem for everyone that just all of a sudden abruptly was listening to us talking. There was a problem with the show. We missed the intro. You didn't miss much. We're back. There's no problem connecting. Guys, how's everyone's Tuesday night going since we're officially live again?
Yeah, there we go.
Good. Brady, are you at home or in your office?
I am at an undisclosed location currently.
So bunker.
Bunker, yeah. It's that cold. I'm actually in the guest room of Jerry Jones's yacht that he did the draft on.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Is the yacht on like a frozen lake or something?
It's just in the middle of downtown Dallas. Like he just has it wherever he wants because it's Jerry frickin' Jones. Come on.
Interesting.
Yeah. No, I'm actually I'm sitting in an office right now. Just I got myself a candle and a light. So here, let's make it change colors. Shall we?
Wow.
Oh.
Whoa, it's red now.
So it's red and it's gonna go like orange. So I'm sitting in my office.
You love
to
see it. So, guys, it's been 2 weeks since we last did a show. I think the last show we did was the award show, so it's been some time since we talked some actual news. So we have some college football news to get to. We have a fun segment coming later in the show, so definitely stay tuned for that. It's going to be a fun, interactive one with all you guys. So if you're in the live chat, definitely stay tuned for that. If there's any college football news you'd like to hear our thoughts on that we may have missed, you guys can donate to the Super Chat. Here are our thoughts on that. Speaking of Super Chat, guys, help support the show on a week-to-week basis. If there's anything you want to hear our opinions on, our thoughts on, if there's, again, news, questions you have for us, anything like that, for as little as $1, you guys can donate to the Super Chat, and we will answer your guys' question. You can follow us on Instagram at Harris Highlight Show. Follow us on Twitter at the HHShow_, and you guys can become a Patreon member for as little as $1 a month. Guys, I said this in our Twitter group chat earlier today. If you're a Patreon member, you get access to a fun Zoom 30, 45-minute Zoom call with the four of us, a bunch of our Patreon supporters. We're going to be doing that in the coming weeks. So if you'd like to, have a Zoom call with the four of us, talk college football for 30, 45 minutes, you guys can gain access to that.
Life. It doesn't have to be just college football.
Yeah, it could be live as well. And you guys get access to the Twitter group message where we're talking college football almost every day. So again, for as little as $1 a month, I mean, that's like going to Taco Bell and not getting the cheesy roll-up. I know that's hard for me and Brady to do. We got to have that cheesy roll-up, but you can have willpower. You can put your dollar towards something else, and you guys can donate. So guys, before we get to our fun segment that Josh came up with, and we're not going to, spoil too much. You guys are going to have to wait until later in the show. Let's talk about some of the latest college.
We're going to keep it locked in a cabinet for the time being.
Let's talk about some of the latest college football news. A lot of people wanted to hear our thoughts on this for our last show, but it was an award show, so unfortunately, we had to stick to just the awards. But guys, this came out about, I think, 2 weeks ago, and NCAA football, the video game, is returning for now. There's reports coming out about, I think the latest I heard was like the earliest it can come out is like 2023, maybe 2024. So it's going to be some time before we see another NCAA football game. Josh, I have been improving my craft. So as MJ. Sure. So as MJ said to me the other day while I was playing and she was reading a book, she says, great, now you can lose to Josh by 40 instead of like 70 when he came over and embarrassed you in your household. So that's great. So guys, we have an NCAA video game coming. There's still a lot that has to come out. I think something that was noticeable when they announced the title was it's not NCAA football. I think it was like college football. College football was in the title, so it might be different than what we currently have. But let's just hear your instant reactions about the news. And as you can see in the little graphic right there, what would you like to see from the game whenever it comes out in 2023 or in 2024?
I think, number one, I want to see I don't want them to do to this game what they did with Madden. I think that Madden's a great game. I think that the original NCAAs, like NCAA 14, I think is better than all of the recent Madden games. So I just like the way that the game handles. I think it's easy to play. It's easy to learn. And as somebody who has played the NCAA video game since I was a little kid, I've played NCAA 14 the last couple of years. adjusting from like there's a difference between that and the newer Madden games. And that's not how it should be. I mean, like the NCAA games were so easy. They were so similar to Madden. And then suddenly they changed the software or the platform or whatever when they stopped making the NCAA games. And I think that they should go back to how it was before, update the graphics, the uniforms, get us some player names. And I just say go back and just improve on what you had before. I mean, so many people still think that NCAA 14 video game was the perfect football video game. And that game is now 6 or 7 years old.
Agreed.
Yeah. Do any of you guys have the college football revamped with that new mod, or are you still playing the old one?
No, I'm still playing the old one. But, like Josh just brought up a point a second ago. I'll let you get to it. But he brought up the comparison of Madden, too, is, I just like last week or 2 weeks ago bought Madden 21 because it was, half price. So why not buy it now? All Maddens are the same. And that's the thing where, they're on like the frostbite. Now we can get way in depth about this. Josh and I probably can. Like we could tell when FIFA got, better when it went over to frostbite. But now what Madden's doing is current players aren't even liking it. It's like it's rinse and repeat. It's the same thing over and over. Like, oh, we've improved gameplay. No, you haven't. It's the same thing over and over. So what are you, EA or whoever is making the game? What are you going to do to make this different? As in, you're going to have the playoff. You're going to have the whatever. In the new Maddens, you can play as like 8 or 10 college football teams, but you get like 2 games and you're playing against like the same team both times. It's terrible. So I think what you need to do is just revamp it and go all out and listen to almost every suggestion that fans of this game have been requesting for so long and implement it into the new game.
Yep.
I was just going to ask, I guess for my own sake, as somebody who doesn't play a whole lot of video games, or for somebody that might want to know the difference, like whatever, or what you were just talking about, what is the difference between that it's becoming too much like Madden compared to what it used to be?
Personally, I think that Madden is very slow. I think there are a lot of things that they've implemented into the game to try to enhance the gameplay and make it more realistic, for example. But I think all of those things have made the gameplay a lot slower. I think they've tried to implement different juke moves and different ways that you can do little combinations and different audibles and stuff like that. And I just thought that, and that's great for people who are really creative and really want a realistic game, which I know a lot of people do. But NCAA, the original ones were, all right, so you have this one play, right? And you've got like 4 buttons. You can then call 4 audibles out of that. Right? So you can call 4 audibles. If you call an audible, then you can then change that into a different audible. But you get those 4 options. With Madden, it's just all of the above. You can do anything, which seems great. But then I think it really slows down the gameplay, and it makes a lot of the game not necessarily about playing the game. And I remember NCAA so if you did like a dynasty mode in the old NCAA games, you would have to go through and you would like recruit players, which is really cool, right? But when you would go to recruit these fake players and stuff, you would have to click on each player individually and then go down and I want to talk about this. I want to talk about that. I'll promise him this. I can guarantee him playing time. So you would actually have these conversations with these players, which to some extent was cool. But you'd spend like hours just recruiting players. And their whole thing was, we want to focus on getting people back onto the field. We want people to play the game, not just sit and talk to recruits. And because that's what people wanted. So it seems like that's what NCAA did, was they prioritized, okay, let's get people to keep playing the game on the field. And Madden has just become a whole bunch of other stuff that affects gameplay. And I'm going
to pull short rounds coming back up too, because Josh, I totally agree with you on that, is when you're playing Madden, especially some of the newer ones, is you'll throw a ball down the middle of the field and, all right, Gronk's wide open. He's going to try to go up and make like a one-handed catch. No, they just... The way Madden works is, yes, the graphics are great. Yes, the engine of it is great. But Josh, I do agree with you. It is slower. It is not as realistic. You get a lot of realism in the graphics in the game, but like Short Round says here, is the player movements itself is just not realistic, or some of the things that players will do. Like the way players will go up for a catch or for an interception or for whatever it may be. It just is some unrealistic things where they're trying to make it as real as possible, but they still struggle with that. And I think one thing that needs to be done in the new college football game is get a good broadcast crew to do it. So Herbie, I know, is going to be all over it, and I guarantee you Herb Street's going to do it. He'll do it for free, he said. Brandon Gaud and Charles Davis are great in the Madden games. I think they do a really good job. It's such a tough job to have, but getting some good college guys, I think, on this game would be definitely a fun thing to do. And one thing that Madden did for a few years was they implemented different broadcast styles. And so, like, you can, like, play the Super Bowl, so it looks like you're playing the Super Bowl. You can play, like, hey, we're going to play Thanksgiving Day, and it has the Thanksgiving graphics. So why not try to, if you're EA, is reach out to Fox, reach out to CBS and ESPN, and have all their different graphic packs available to play these games, which would be really cool.
Yeah, I was gonna say, first I have a question for Lau, but I was gonna say, I think one of like the old NCAA basketball games did that years ago,
Yep,
where they had all the different ones. Have it like this, where have Thursday night edition where you got Matt Berry, Pat McAfee, all those guys on the call.
Yeah.
Have like a Gus Johnson. I think a Gus Johnson Kirk Herbstreit combo would be fantastic.
Ooh.
Have something like that. Have different ones. Lyle, is the last NCAA football game you played the one that's on the Wii, where like there's the videos of you and Spencer literally shaking the Wii remote like absolutely crazy? Is that the last NCAA game you played?
I think, and that's like 08 or 09.
It's
Yeah,
09 because
it's
I
been
remember I had that one on the Wii too.
Mm-hmm.
So going off
the
of
last one.
kind of going off what you said, Blake, in FIFA, the way that they did that was, for people that don't know soccer, like you play like, if you were to play like a season in FIFA, you would have like your club games. So like I've got a Man United jersey behind me. So I play for Man United. So I've got my Man United season, but I've also got a tournament that I'm playing in here. If I'm an American, I'll go play for Team USA, whatever. Like you've got all these different competitions. FIFA implemented different broadcasters for each competition. So they had like
different leagues and cups too.
Yeah. So they had like 3 different broadcast pairings that you would just get if you would go to a different tournament. And then in the more recent games, instead of just picking that tournament and you just get that broadcast crew, they cycle it. So you don't have the same crew every single game. So I think that's one thing that they could do too, because you know that like the first time they've done this game in what will be at the time, probably 10 years, I bet you all these broadcasters are going to want to be a part of it too.
Yeah. It'll be exciting to see. I mean, for the most part, there's NCAA 14, the way it's set up, there's like nothing. I mean, there's a few things you can add. People have comments like having Storm the Field, maybe have like a college game day type setup where it's like a little pre-game show. But for the most part, they have everything down pretty good. I mean, back this game came out, 2014, 2015, the Dynasty's pretty good. Road to Glory is pretty good. Just up that a little, improve it. And again, just who knows? I feel like if they listen to everyone, they have a few years to do this, which is the good thing. They're not going to rush it. They're not going to do anything like that. Guys, I have a question before we move on. Again,
really quickly, like you said, a game day type thing is in some of the new 2K games, they have like the inside the NBA crew, even for 30 seconds before the game, and it's still enjoyable. So something quick like that would be really entertaining. I'd love to see Video Game League Corso.
Right. I know it's not going to be coming out this year, but let's say it was coming out in July when I think the games used to come out. If you were in charge, who are you putting on the cover for the first edition? Which, by the way, I'm doing like a video looking at all the cover athletes from NCAA. I didn't know that Denard Robinson won a fan vote to be on the cover for NCAA 2014. Do you guys want to take a guess as to who he beat in the championship of voting to get on the cover? So everyone thinks of NCAA 14. They've been thinking of Denard Robinson for the last, 7-8 years. Guess who could have been on the cover and been the cover boy athlete the last 7-8 years? Everyone take a guess.
14.
So the game would have come out in 2013. I'm going to guess either Johnny Manziel or Manti Te'o.
I'll say Jameis.
I'll go Mariota.
Ryan Swope, wide receiver from Texas A&M, was in the championship of voting. That's who Denard Robinson took down. It's just like how Peyton Hillis won the Madden cover that one year.
Yeah.
I mean, some of the names I jotted down some of the names that Denard Robinson took down on his way to glory. He took down Eddie Lacy, Jarvis Jones, Tyler Eifert. So it was a massive voting thing. But
they used to do. I don't think any other game did this, and obviously, like being a cover athlete is like a big time thing now for across all the different games: FIFA, NFL, Madden, NBA, whatever. I'm pretty sure NCAA football used to have a different player for different consoles. Like I remember,
it was 2009 and 2010.
Because I remember the 2008 or the 2009 game, whichever one had.
I have it right here for you. So 2009, I believe. Let's see here. It was 2009 and 2010. So 2009 was Darren McFadden, who was on Xbox 360. Deshaun Jackson, who was on I think PS2. What else we got here? Matt Ryan was on PS3, and West Virginia fullback Owen Schmidt. Ron Wolfley somewhere was smiling harder than anyone else. He was on the PSP cover. And then in 2010, Mark Sanchez was on the PSP cover.
I had the 2010 Mark Sanchez for PSP.
I always wanted the Mark Sanchez one, but I didn't. I had an Xbox and I was so mad.
Michael Crabtree was on the 360 one. Utah quarterback Brian Johnson was on the PS3, and Brian Arakpo was on the PS2 cover. So those 2 years, they had it where it was 4 different ones, which I like. I think it's kind of cool, but it kind of shafts you where, I don't want Michael Crabtree. I want Mark Sanchez on my on my one. There's nothing you can do about it. But I did like when they did that, when they had four different options.
Wasn't Jared Zabransky on it? Wasn't Jared Zabransky on it in 2008? Incredible. Yeah. And I'm pretty sure that was like a few years after he was there too. I'm pretty sure.
It was usually about 2 years after they were there. Like how Reggie Bush was on the
Reggie was 07 one. Yeah.
I remember the RG3 cover was the first that like had a lot going on.
Yeah, it had the Heisman and it had like Barry Sanders behind him.
Yeah.
What was the first one you guys ever got?
05 with Larry Fitzgerald when it was
Me too.
It was the half NCAA football 05 and half topspin tennis.
Yes, I got it with my Xbox. It came in the packaging with the Xbox.
Right.
I think mine was I don't remember. I think my first one was Tebow actually. So it was later.
So it was 11.
Yeah. But then I had 11, 12, 13, 14.
Lyles had the frickin' Michigan State Spartan. Who was on the cover of the Wii edition. The Michigan State Spartan.
Who? Oh, like the mascot?
Yeah, like the mascot.
What?
Sparty, he was on the Wii cover.
Wow.
All right, so Blake, back to your question. Who do we put on this year's cover?
Yes. Yeah, going back to the original question, if it came out in July, who would you guys have on the cover for the first time in 7 years?
I think I would go. I would go away from Devontae Smith. I think I would go with somebody who's a little more recognizable across college football, and I would do Trevor Lawrence. It's because of the hair. If it was coming out in June, I'd go Trevor Lawrence.
If it were like biggest star over the last few years, I would put Trevor Lawrence. If you really want it based off of 2020, I would go Devontae Smith. Or if you wanted best season since the game last came out, I would probably say Joe Burrow. One of those three for me.
So it was like Madden 12, Madden 13, whatever year it was. It was the cover where it was the Cardinals and the Steelers. So it was Fitzgerald and Palomalu.
Yeah.
So why not do something like where it's, one player from every year since 2014?
That'd be cool.
You just load it up. You just have sort of a collage of guys.
I like
it. Going since 2014. It might get a little clustered, but I think it'd be kind of cool.
Yeah, that's what FIFA used to do. There was a time when Messi had like a deal, and there was like a deal with EA that Leo Messi would just be like the cover athlete every year, and it was like a 6-year deal or whatever. Yeah. But then depending on which country you were in, there was a second player on the cover. So like 2 years,
like Alex Morgan.
Yeah, so like 2016, it was like Alex Morgan. 2015 was like Clint Dempsey in the United States. But then if it was in England, it was an English guy.
It was Wayne Rooney or whoever.
Oh,
Coach Wayne Rooney. Coach.
So it's gonna be a few years. Storm Harris has been a great running back while at Arizona State. He's coming for the Heisman. Storm Harris. I didn't want to put myself in the game, so I put my future boy Storm Harris in the game, and he's been looking really good. So hopefully we can get it in the next couple of years. But NCAA 14, it'll hold us off, guys. Before we get to the next bit of news, we actually had a super chat a while ago from a man Connor. Instead of waiting for the Q&A later, the Ravens just hired T. Martin as their new wide receivers coach. Why? What are the Ravens getting in Martin, and might this be a better hire than I already think it is? Josh, there's only one person that can answer this question, so we're going to throw it to you to give Connor some confidence in the hire that is T. Martin as the wide receivers coach for the NFL team Baltimore Ravens, a team that is in the NFL that just hired T. Martin to be a part of their coaching staff. Martin in the NFL.
I would say that wide receiving core probably needed a little bit of help. Is T. Martin the guy to improve that for them? I don't know, but I will say this. Be thankful he's not your offensive coordinator. He was such a boring offensive coordinator. And I just remember there were games at SC where they would lose. And but when Tyler Vaughns was a freshman and went off for the first time, they lost that game. But Tyler Vaughns had 100 yards and 2 touchdowns or something. And they were asking him questions. And he was just mean. He was just mean to every single question. Not oh, do you deserve a job after this performance? No, hey, what's your outcome? What did you take away from the game? And he was just rude and mean to everyone. And then they were so what do you think about about Tyler Vaughns today? And he's I don't know. What did you think about Tyler Vaughns? Okay, just answer the question. You were the one who coached a bad game. Don't be mad at people for asking questions. I've never understood that. But yeah, he was a very boring offensive coordinator. So if he could focus on one thing, I think that's really good. Also, phenomenal recruiter for a college coach. Phenomenal recruiter. I don't know how that translates to the NFL, but it's not a bad hire. I'm surprised, but it's not a bad hire.
So, Connor, hopefully that answers your question. Again, guys, if you have any other questions like this, you want to hear our thoughts on, we got a lot going in the super chat right now. I mean, there's a lot in the live chat. You guys can donate to the super chat like Connor, and we will answer your guys' question. Comes up in a nice color. Connor had orange right here. They did another one. It was yellow. I don't know if you choose it. I don't know if you can pick, but again, if there's anything you guys want to know, hear our thoughts on random questions, opinions, anything like that, hit us up in the super chat. It could be $1, $2, $100 million, ever much you'd like to donate.
If you would like to $100 million, I'd be okay with that.
Yeah, again, I'm not going to,
I'll settle for $1 million.
I'll settle right there. Actually, we got Steven Smith coming in right now. Guys, this is actually, this was going to be part of my news bit when we got to the bit of news, because we never talked about Larry Scott being no more in the Pac-12. But Steven Smith, I guess, read our minds, and he comes in saying, do you think Larry Scott will still have say in the Pac-12, or do you think he doesn't have any influence after being let go as commissioner this year? So I think, yeah, it happened like a month ago, but yeah, just we never, I don't think, went in depth on it and talked about it. So, guys, what do you have to say to Steven Smith's question right here?
First of all, thank God. Second of all, unfortunately, I cannot cite my source on this. I saw this update a month ago, a day after it came out. And I guess somebody had asked a Pac-12 board member, one of the school, administrators, athletic director, whatever, since he's staying until June or whatever it is, what's the hiring process going to be? And they had said, well, given how Larry's leadership has been, we are looking to hire somebody immediately. He can stay until June. We're hiring somebody now. We need to get somebody in and ready to go. So I say, thank goodness he's gone. I think that he will have no say and no influence in what happens in the Pac-12. And I would be very surprised to hear that he had substantial influence until June when he finally disappears. I think that he was not a very good commissioner. I think that there were a lot of decisions that were made that were not successful, that were questionable, that were, quite frankly, a little bit sketchy. I think that it was kind of like an ego thing with the Pac-12 wanting to be the best, but not taking the steps to ensure that you're the best. And it doesn't help that the Pac-12 is very, very successful and has been successful under him, except in football and basketball, which are your two biggest money-making sports at all of those universities.
Those are the only money-making sports.
Exactly. Winning every water polo championship and swimming and adding in a couple of good lacrosse and women's soccer teams and softball. That's all great. Baseball, all of that's great. But the sports that make you the most money and get you the most notoriety on a national level are football and basketball. And he just didn't do enough to make those sports relevant.
As Ray Charles
or accessible to the rest of the country, which
Ray
is
the
reason why they weren't in the playoff.
As Ray Charles once famously said, hit the road, Jack, and get the hell out. I remember when the news broke when we were on the show, I was like, bye, see ya, enjoy retirement, go somewhere else. We don't want you here. So I just get lost, Larry Scott. I was so happy when we saw the news, and I don't think you'll have any say whatsoever moving forward after this year.
Yeah, why should he have any say? I mean, if you ask people around the Pac, Yeah, if you ask people around the Pac-12, I would be shocked to find somebody that said, "Yeah, he did a good job." Like, I mean, most people you talk to are going to say what we're saying. He was running the conference into the ground. He was not making the conference enough money. Don't even get started about like the offices in San Francisco or the stuff he'd rent during the Pac-12 tournament and all that stuff. But like, he just didn't grow the conference. Like, again, how many people are you really going to find that say Larry Scott did a good job? And when it gets to that point, like, move on. Why would you let him have any say for the next few months?
Yeah, so luckily he's gone. Hopefully he's nowhere near the Pac-12 anytime soon. Hopefully they bring in some new referees. It'll be interesting to see. So what was it? He's officially like there, I guess, till June.
Something like that. Oh, Blake's gone.
Oh, my bad.
What did
My
you
bad.
do?
My bad.
I was just gonna say, hopefully sooner rather than later. I mean, I'm sure they've already doing the interviewing process, but hopefully sooner rather than later they can bring in someone and we can get an upgrade because Larry Scott, no thanks. All right, guys,
Anybody's an upgrade.
We have about
Paula
6
for commissioner. Paula for
We
commissioner.
have about 5 or 6 minutes to get to the latest news before we get to our fun new segment that Josh created himself. So since we don't have to do the Larry Scott bit of news anymore, guys, we got some college head coaching news. Yesterday, Gus Malzahn to UCF. He's currently making more to not coach for Auburn than he will at UCF. We talked about this when he got fired a few weeks ago. He's making so much money. I think the bio was like, it was 21 million. I want to say something like that. He's getting paid a ton of money. He has no need to come back and coach. Do you think he's going to, go to a Power 5 school as like an offensive coordinator and stick there, or he's going to go to a Group of 5 team, be a head coach, work his way up? Well, I guess if you're going to a Group of 5 school, UCF, they just had an opening. Have you guys been following along what's going on in Tennessee? How they're pretty much just saying like he can literally do whatever he wants as long as he's not Pruitt. Heupel can do no wrong. So Heupel's gone. There's still conflict with him at UCF, but Gus Malzahn goes to the Knights. Like I said, guys, a few minutes to spend on the news. Just, I guess, a quick rapid fire. Your just immediate initial reaction from the Knights making this hire.
I think it's a great hire. I think he's a great coach, and I think he's proven to be a good coach, and he gets results, and he got results at Auburn. But again, like I said when we first talked about him getting fired, which we were all a little bit surprised about, he came in and was hired at Auburn to completely reinvent the offense, to smother teams with his offense, and he basically he helped reinvent what we currently see from modern offenses, and they were pretty pathetic the last couple of years. So it just didn't work. That doesn't mean he's not a good coach. It just means that it kind of just died out. Like people figure out how to stop these offenses. Other people will imitate it. Other people will develop their own offenses. And his just kind of got boring. That doesn't mean he's not a bad coach. I think it's a fantastic hire. I think UCF is not only that, but okay. So here's the thing. Heupel, yeah, great. Scott Frost, when he was, at UCF, like, sure, like they were both good coaches. Scott Frost turned around that program. Heupel kind of came over and took over from where Frost left off. They're getting a high profile coach now. I mean, did anybody really know, like, oh my God, Josh Heupel's the UCF coach? Oh my God. Like, no. Like Gus Malzahn has been a Power 5 head coach for the last 10 years. This is a guy that people are going to want to play for. And I think UCF's only going up from here.
I think it's kind of similar to what we saw. I say similar, but in a different sense of it's kind of similar to what we saw with Lane Kiffin the last few years. Is Kiffin was at USC, he was at these big schools, and then all of a sudden he's at Florida Atlantic, FAU. And, he had a decent few years at FAU, and then all of a sudden now he's back in the SEC. I think this job for Gus Malzahn's great. I think you're not going to get as much pressure. There's still going to be a lot of pressure because UCF is now one of the upper echelon Group of 5 schools. It's kind of like going to Boise State, but I think UCF is in that regard of being an upper echelon Group of 5 school. So there's not going to be as much pressure for him, but I think it's a very, very similar transition he can make from Auburn to UCF, especially with, there's a lot of good guys in Florida. So recruiting is going to be a good recruiting ground for him. And like you said earlier, he's a great recruiter. So I think it's going to be one thing where we're going to see a really impressive showing, I believe, from Gus Malzahn starting off as re-energizing his career at UCF. I think it's going to be a good fit for him.
Yeah,
Lyle, I keep jumping in front of Lyle. I'm sorry about that.
No, you're good. I mean, I just kind of said, yeah, sure, when he got hired. Like, yeah, it's a good hire. I don't think he'll stick there that long. He'll probably want to get back into the Power 5 sooner rather than later. But again, like I said, he wasn't a bad coach by any standards. He was a good coach at Auburn. It was just the fact of the matter that he couldn't beat teams like Alabama. His record speaks for itself in his time at Auburn, and I think he'll be just fine at UCF.
Yeah, it's a good hire. I like it, but the problem is the fact that how long is he, going to be there before he moves up to the Power 5 ranks again? Where if you're one of these recruits, you want to play for him, is he going to be there 2 years from now? I mean, if UCF goes, 11-1 next year, they win a pretty good bowl game, and then the following year they go 11-1 again, he's going to have Power 5 offers coming his way. So again, it's a good hire. It's just I don't think he's going to be there more than 3 years. I'll give it 3 years max.
So I'm going to jump in and say this really quickly: is I don't think he'll jump ship that early, because a lot of these guys who have been UCF's coach haven't coached at a high level before. You have Scott Frost, who is working his way up. Gus Malzahn's been at the highest level. So if he can succeed at UCF and is getting good money to do so, why not stay at UCF for longer than 2-3 years?
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see what. Oh, there goes Josh's light. So, guys, speaking of head coaches, no real notable coaching hires from the past few weeks. We had some notable extensions. So before we get to our segment, guys, Matt Campbell at Iowa State, an extension through 2028. So I'm going to put my over/under on this, guys. You guys give me your answer. Over/under on years he remains at Iowa State. Over/under of 3.5 years.
Under.
Honestly, I'm going to say over. I think Iowa State will be good this upcoming year. I don't know if they'll consistently be good. So if the idea is that he's going to move on and get a head coaching job, I think it would have to be after this year. So I'll say over.
I'm going to go over as well. I think an 7 or 8 year contract extension is one thing. It's a long time. So I think 3.5 is going to be over.
I'm going to go over as well. He just seems like one of those guys where he's going to be at the school for a while. So I think we're all taking the over, which always take the over. It's more exciting. And guys, we got one more. Northwestern coach Pat Fitzgerald agreed to a new 10-year contract extension that now stretches through 2030. He's been there. I don't have the years in front of me, but he's been there for at least a decade. I want to say he's been there since like 2006, 2005, something like that. Over under on years he remains at Northwestern. He's another name that's been attached to a lot of NFL gigs, other coaching gigs in college football. Over under 5.5 years that he stays at Northwestern.
He's been the head coach since 2006.
There you go.
So he's tough considering he's been there for a while. I'm going to say over just because I don't see him getting a different job and leaving. And I think he's pretty dedicated to that school. I think it just depends on look, I think Northwestern is pretty much okay if he hands him a 7-win season next year, because he's done that 100 times where he's given him a 7-win season and then pulls a 9 or 10-win season out. Next year they go back to 7 wins or whatever. He's going to pull out these really impressive seasons. But I think for the most part, he's a solid football coach at a pretty decent program in a really good conference. And I think that he's absolutely good enough for a 10-year contract. I'm just surprised considering he's been there for so long. I mean, by the time this contract is up, we're like looking at past like Mike Gundy levels. So, I mean, I'll say over.
Yeah, I'm going to say over too. Like again, he had whispers about him moving to the NFL, but he signed this extension instead, which kind of says to you he really wants to be there considering how long he's been there and how long by the length of the contract he plans to be there in the future. So yeah, I see him sticking there for a while. Also, he's great. Like I know we talk about Tom Allen a lot and rightfully so, but Pat Fitzgerald is awesome. Like most of that team just loves him.
Mm-hmm. I'm going to go over the 5.5 as well. I think having been there for 14 years, like he has been, this was his 14th. I think if he was going to leave, he would have left already. Yes, he has some prestige. Yes, he has some offers to maybe go up to the NFL, but I think he's in a really good spot at Northwestern, and I think it's a good place for him to stay in at least 5.5 years.
Still pretty young too. That's why it's crazy that he's been there
for having been a head coach.
Yeah.
For
what is he like?
14
Probably
years.
What is he like? 45.
I'd say that he's 47.
I'm going to read Steven Smith's super chat really quickly. Assistant coaches will get
46 years old.
46.
46. So assistant coaches will get $3 million over 3 years with Matt Campbell's new contract. He'll be over 3 years with another new contract next year, most likely. I mean, if Iowa State, wins the Big 12 this year, he's gonna have a nice little hefty extension coming his way. So Stephen Smith, you got nothing to worry about. You got a great coach. You got a great team that's returning like every literal player that was on that offense last year. So and defense. So it's gonna be a lot of fun. So guys, I don't think there's any more news really out there that we got to get to. So I think
I knew this was coming.
By doing so, we move to our new segment, the Presidential Cabinet of College Football Personalities. Guys, there's a lot going on in the politics world right now, which we are going to completely ignore. But we thought it'd be a fun thing to do and put together our own Presidential Cabinet of College Football Personalities. So essentially, out there in the political world, there are a lot of jobs. And we are now the president of college football. The four of us, we're in charge, so we're the president. And we are going to be letting you guys know who we want to hire for each specific position. So there's about, I think, 12 or so different positions that we're each going to get to. All four of us, we don't know who we picked. We're all going to share with you who we would like to hire for that specific job. And you guys in the comments in the live chat, you guys can let us know who you'd hire for that position out of the four of us, who you like the best. And pretty much just have fun with this. This is supposed to be a fun, stupid, interactive thing with you guys. So again,
it is not serious.
It is not serious whatsoever. This is just for
by
fun.
the way, 16.
So there
do you want me to read out the positions real quick?
We'll just go one by one. So we'll kick things off now with the vice president. Again, we are all in charge. We are the president, but we got to have a VP. So guys, each one, again, for all these, we don't have to give full explanations. If there's one that you would like to explain, because if there's 16 categories, four of us, it's going to take a while. So no need to explain everyone unless there's a great reason for it. Again, in the comments below, let us know who you'd pick for a certain position and which out of the four of us you like the best. So Josh, it was your brilliant idea. So who are you picking to be our VP?
Well, thanks, guys. I'm happy to have won the Electoral College and presidential vote 100% to 0. So I'm just happy to be here. My vice president, I got to pick a guy who I think would be perfect to take over for me. God forbid something bad happens. And for me,
assassination.
What was that, Brady? Assassination. I am picking our guy, Arizona State Sun Devils athletic director Ray Anderson. Ooh. He was very high up in the NFL. He's got a huge business background before he was at ASU. Personally, I think he's a perfect candidate to take over the Pac-12 commissioner job. I hope he doesn't, because I hope he stays at ASU.
He already said he isn't.
Yeah, but I knew that he was considered for it, at least a little bit. And he's my VP. Not everybody might know who he is, but Pac-12 people and ASU people and NFL people who know like the business side and stuff will know that Ray Anderson is a good pick. So I think I've already won, guys. So go on, I guess.
Not so fast, my friend. Lyle, go ahead.
Okay. It seems like we're going to be all over the place with this.
Yeah, we are.
I'm sure we will be.
I did not expect to hear a name like Ray Anderson. I picked Nick Saban to be my VP just because he's the king of college football. And this is the highest position in the cabinet that we're giving out. So it seemed only fair to give it to the most decorated guy.
Interesting. I kind of like that. I have Nick Saban as a different position in my cabinet, just a little teaser for later, but I'm going to go with somebody that we all actually know personally.
Oh, damn it. I knew that was coming.
Paula Bowman's my VP. She's already the queen of college football, so why not make her the vice president of college football? So Paula, if you're listening to this when I tweet out this clip tomorrow, you're going to be my VP for college football. So let's get running. Congratulations. I'm happy to have you on board.
As the great Champ Kind once said, I'm all about having fun. So if the four of us, for whatever reason, get blown up and we're no more, we need the vice president to take over, I want Pat McAfee leading all college football. He's going to have fun. He's going to make college football fun again. So I got to have Pat McAfee taking over. Those are some good ones. All right, guys, that's our VP. Secretary of State. Who do we like for our Secretary of State? Also, whatever every category is, everyone in the comments is just going to be saying Lee Corso.
Lee Corso.
That's what everyone's saying for everything. All right, guys, Secretary of State.
Well, it's funny that everybody's saying that because Secretary of State is somebody who's kind of going to be like an ambassador to other countries, involve themselves in foreign affairs, and be a good representative for my country. And if I want a good representative for college football, look no further than Lee Corso. So I've got Lee Corso as my Secretary of State.
All right, so we're kind of similar on this, not the exact same, but I had Kirk Herbstreit as mine for that exact reason. Like, you see him on game day, you see him on the selection shows, you hear him on color for all the biggest games. Yeah, like, he's one of the faces of college football. Almost everybody likes him. I thought that was, I don't know, that one was pretty straightforward for me.
I originally had Gary Barta, but then I remembered how terrible he was. So I'm not going to do Gary Barta. Funny enough, I also stuck in the same realm, and I also did Kirk Herbstreit for the same reason.
I almost picked Herbie too. So
it's interesting how we're all kind of going the similar route here, except I have one that's similar but better, and I put the entire college game day crew. We're sending them wherever they need to go. All of them, the entire crew. Not the bear though, because if you go under 500 with your bets of the week on the season, we don't want you sitting there. So I got the.
What was your final tally, Blake?
Oh, it was like 68%, 70%. It was something really high. All right, guys, we got the Secretary of the Treasury.
This is a really interesting one. You got to know somebody. You got to pick somebody who's familiar with money and knows how to spend it and knows how to invest it. And if there's one person that knows how to do that, I think it's Nevin Shapiro. So if you are familiar with the U. You would know that Nevin Shapiro is the guy that got Miami into all sorts of trouble for basically funding all the expenses for all of Miami's players. And look, I want, you want somebody who knows how to have a good time, Nevin Shapiro. You want somebody that's going to throw money around to everybody, Nevin Shapiro. And you want a guy who's going to make good investments, Nevin Shapiro. I know he's probably in jail, and I know that he got that school in a lot of trouble and got a lot of people fired. But hey, forgive and forget. So I'm bringing Nevin Shapiro in to be my Secretary of the Treasury.
It's funny you went with a guy like Nevin Shapiro. That was not my answer. My answer is former Ohio State head coach Jim Tressel. Really a guy that just knows the way around with money. I mean, come on. Like, we haven't heard about him in so long too. He feels like the type of guy that's been under a rock for so long. And now this new NCAA football game is going to come out and be like, wow, I haven't heard about anything that's gone on in the last few months except this new NCAA football game being released. You know what I should do? Seems like a really good time to, I don't know, like maybe invest in GameStop. I mean, with the new game coming out. So there's my Secretary of Treasury.
So I put two. I actually put Jim Tressel at the beginning, but then I thought a little more and realized I'm going to go Jeremy Pruitt for handing out money in McDonald's bags. So I'm going Jeremy Pruitt.
It's funny. I was doing some video the other day.
Real quick, Jim Tressel, the president at Youngstown State University now.
Is he actually? Oh, that's right. He is.
Yeah. President of Youngstown State. Yeah.
I was doing some video on Terrell Pryor the other day, and I completely forgot about that whole thing about how he was making thousands and thousands off of signed memorabilia for all the boosters back in the day. So Jim Tressel, yeah, he was the name that I was looking into. Guys, we need someone that's good with money, someone that has a lot of money to deal with. So who better than a former Texas Tech quarterback who we saw in person and didn't think twice of because we were watching Kalen Ballage rush for 8 touchdowns. And that's Patrick Mahomes, because Patrick Mahomes has a lot of money that he has to deal with, considering he signed a contract worth $500 million. As part of isn't every advertising commercial out there. So Patrick Mahomes, he'll be a billionaire in about 20 years or so. Let's get him in charge. All right, guys. Secretary of Defense.
This is an easy one for me. I wanted to pick somebody who has shown consistency. They don't need to be a part of the number one defense every single year, but I want to see some consistency. I want to see a leader. So I think it's very easy to pick Brent Venables as my Secretary of Defense. Elite defensive coordinator, so much success at Clemson. So I'm taking Brent Venables as my Secretary of Defense.
Good answer.
That was mine.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
See, I went a player route. I went with a player. Somebody who was a 3-year starting linebacker and a 3-year captain. And won a major bowl game. That's Thad Castle. I mean, he was a great linebacker. He was a great guy, an elite linebacker in college football. So my Secretary of Defense or defense, I'm going to go Thad Castle.
See, I mean, I look at this and I want someone on my side. I want someone that's going to protect me. So I'm going with the Oregon football strength and conditioning coach with the shirt that's an extra small and the greatest mustache of all time, because he's going to keep us safe. He's going to defend us. So I don't know what his name is. He's just the buff.
His name's Aaron Feld. I know that because he may or may not be on my list later.
Oh, interesting. Interesting, which is a little teaser for later in the show. All right, guys, we got Attorney General.
Attorney General, this is somebody who's going to be basically like your top lawyer in the country in terms of all like federal cases and things like that. So I really thought, like, who do I want that's, like a lawyer? I don't know. But there's somebody that I'm going to bring in that I know that could get away with almost anything. And the reason why is because he has. Urban Meyer is my Attorney General, because it doesn't matter what this guy does. He just continues to get jobs. And instead of getting fired, he's like, I got to go. Like, I'm just going to step aside for a bit. And then he's going to be like, hey, guess who's back? And then he's like, hey, I got to go. And then he just gets a better job. And everything he does, he just seems to get away with. So, Urban Meyer, I like you personally, and I want you to be my Attorney General and to help me get away with everything.
See, I went away from the lawyer part of this because I read how an attorney general is basically the people's lawyer. So I wanted to pick the people's coach, and that was Edo for me. So Edo is my attorney general.
I went similarly to what Lyle did there. I went with our boy Herm Edwards. He's a hell of a talker. He's an energetic guy, and he's a character. So I'm going Herm Edwards, and I'm guessing we're going to hear that name again in about 3 seconds. Blake?
Yeah, you just took mine. You looked at my notes. I'm not shocked, you thief. So no need to explain it. But yeah, I got Herm Edwards also as my Attorney General because this guy's winning every case. No questions asked. Like, he could probably go to McDonald's and say, I'd like the McDouble. And they'll say, oh, that's actually $1.89, not $1 anymore. He says, no, it's $1. And next thing you know is they're giving him $1 for the McDouble. So that's what I'm going to go with, guys. We got Secretary of the Interior.
So I didn't really know what the Secretary of the Interior was when I started doing this, and it's like conservation of federal lands and grants and like Native American, whatever. Whatever. I didn't mean that as dismissive. It's just a bunch of stuff. They have a buffalo on the seal. So my first choice was Ralphie. He's got no qualifications other than the fact that he's on the seal for the Department of the Interior. But this is one where I decided to make kind of a last-minute switch, and I actually switched her from a different position on this list. I have Paula Bovin on this too. I think that she would do a great job of taking care of everybody that's in the interior, and I think she'd be really good at that. And Interior, you kind of suggest some new laws here and there, and being that she's on the College Football Playoff Committee, I think she'd be a good fit for that too. So my Secretary of the Interior would be Paula Bovin, and her assistant secretary, whoever her number 2 is Ralphie the Buffalo from Colorado, because he's on the logo anyway. Okay,
so this guy for my Secretary of the Interior position, I feel like is a guy that's kind of forgotten about because his post-college career didn't end up going to much, but his college career was off the charts. So my Secretary of the Interior is a guy, Barrett Jones, who was Alabama's center, like phenomenal interior lineman who won the Outland Trophy twice. Here's my Secretary of the Interior. I don't think anybody had him on our all-time college football list when we did it back in May and June, but this guy was legit. So he's going to protect the interior for me.
I originally had Penei Sewell, but then I remembered it's the interior, and he's a tackle. So I changed mine to Quentin Nelson. I was going a similar mindset with what you had, Lyle. An elite offensive lineman in college and the NFL, and he's going to be serving up pancakes all day long. Hey, happy International Pancake Day, guys.
Pancakes?
What the hell was that?
Nothing. See that kid on TikTok? It's like, I'm trying to see some pancakes.
You're a strange one, Josh. You know that?
He's weirder. It's fine.
Yeah. More weird. Anyways, I'm going.
Oh, I didn't realize this was a grammar class.
Yeah, whatever, man. I'm going Quentin Nelson for my interior.
Yeah, Lyle, Brady, and I were all kind of going the same route. So I was going to go with someone recent, but I thought I'd go back a bit. Get one of the better ones of all time. I'm going Orlando Pace. We're getting some beef down there in the trenches, boys. So I don't know what his size is nowadays, but if he's your
do you guys get the FanDuel commercials?
Unfortunately, no.
Josh, have you ever seen them? Oh, it's like we get FanDuel commercials, but Orlando Pace is in one of them, and he's huge.
Yeah, he's big.
Well, there you go. That makes my decision that much better. All right, guys. Secretary of Agriculture.
All right, so I need to get somebody who knows food, who knows about growing stuff, growing food, transporting food. And if there's somebody that I'm going to trust with food, it's a guy that I know makes a mean gumbo, and that's Coach O. I want him to I think that he would be a great fit for this position. Also, God forbid we have some food shortages. Don't look at me right now and tell me you don't think Coach O had survived for like a year in the wild eating snails and grass and tree bark. He can make it happen, and he can keep everybody alive. So I'm taking Coach O. That was a first name I put on this list, was Coach O for Secretary of Agriculture.
I went with Brett Bolima, now Illinois head coach. Why? Because he grew up on a farm. So there we go.
Wow.
So Josh just said something, and it was very, very quick. I don't know if anybody caught it.
Uh-oh.
But I did. But I actually had this written down. You said somebody's going to be out there eating grass. So I'm going to go Les Miles. Because Les Miles, he's known for eating grass before games on every field. So I'm going with Les Miles for our Secretary of Agriculture.
Spent a lot of time around cornfields recently.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was thinking that too. I was thinking of, going someone the Iowa State, Nebraska route. But then I thought, I need someone that has experience growing stuff. So I thought, who out there can grow something? Doesn't matter what it is, but I want them to grow something.
Where's this going?
I'm going to go with Ricky Williams. He grows and invests in some certain thing out there.
We are friends together on the show.
He has a very successful business where he grows.
Could have said Todd Marinovich.
Sells. There you go as well. So
why did I think of that?
I'm going to go with Ricky Williams on that one. All right, guys, we got Secretary of Commerce.
I need somebody who's going to pump money into the economy, somebody to stimulate commerce, stimulate the economy, spend money to make money. And if there's one person who knows how to spend money to make money, it's Johnny Football, baby. It's Johnny Football. So I'm taking Johnny Manziel as my Secretary of Commerce.
I went for Trevor Lawrence for this one, just because he was such a factor in getting college football back this year, and he was such a good voice for it. And obviously, being the face of the sport, he brings in a lot of revenue. So I went with Trevor Lawrence.
So I'm going with a guy that has a lot of revenue, but not really from college football. He's around the game a lot, and that's Matthew McConaughey. I think he'd be a great guy for this position. He'd be all right at this job. So I'm going to go Matthew McConaughey for the Secretary of Commerce.
Yeah, this next one, there's not a player where I wish he could have gone to my school more than this guy, where unfortunately he went, to the school down south a bit. But that's Rob Gronkowski, because this guy, the fact that he's so experienced with getting hammered and drunk. He was like a professional for the Buccaneers Super Bowl parade, where Brady has never gotten obliterated before, and he was the one that looked like he was a high schooler out there. Where meanwhile Gronk was probably 20 shots deep, and the dude looked like he was sober. This guy, I want him representing college football, the great sport of college football, and I think he'll do a great job doing that. Guys, next one we got is Secretary of.
Really quickly, one more point on McConaughey. If you haven't read his new book, check it out. It's great. The one thing that pisses me off though is the book sleeve cover doesn't fit on the whole book. It's only half the size, so that drives me crazy.
So I got to just take the cover off.
Just take it off. Secretary of Labor, Josh.
Secretary of Labor. So this is a position where I was looking for somebody who would be persistent in, pursuing new laws and implementing new laws for to really stimulate the labor force. Somebody with a background in politics. Somebody that was a workhorse in everything that they do and puts in a lot of effort, and of course has a college football background. And there's only one person that you could have possibly put here, and that's Forrest Gump. He played at Alabama. He has a background in politics. He met 3 presidents. 3? at least 3 presidents. He served in the military. He was persistent to ask Jenny to go out with him and to marry him about 40 times. And have you seen that guy run? This dude is a workhorse. It is easy. Forrest Gump, Secretary of Labor.
Oh, this one was easy for me. A guy who is pretty familiar with getting a bunch of different jobs or gigs, we could say. Tate Martell. I mean, that guy's been everywhere. That guy's been everywhere. He's got landmarks and bullet or pins on the map that you put pins on. He's got them everywhere, so he can help everybody.
I kind of like that. I was gonna go with one of the most universally loved people in all of college football. In college athletics as a whole, I'm going to go with Puddles, the Oregon Duck mascot, for this job. I think he'd do a great job here. You see him, on his motorcycle, he's on the bike, he's running out of the tunnel, he's doing everything. So he's one of those guys that can do pretty much everything, and that's what you're going to need for a good Secretary of Labor. So Puddles the Duck, you're my Secretary of Labor.
Yeah, when I think of putting in work, when I think of someone that's out there that's in the gym every day, improving themselves, wanting to be the best out there, one name immediately came to mind. No, not me. Guys, remember a few years back, a nice defensive end out of Baylor, Sean Oakman, all like 6'8", straight up like 240, 8-pack, just all the memes of him, just, hey, daddy, can you pass the salt? Yes, whatever those memes were, I don't know. Sean Oakman, that dude was a tank. He would be a fantastic job at this. All right, guys, we got a few more left. Let's go to Secretary of Health and Human Services.
I put DK Metcalf because look at that guy. That dude's healthy.
Lyle had it too.
Did Lyle have DK Metcalf?
Of course, dude. 1.6
Look at that guy.
1.6% body fat. I mean, how could you not?
Exactly. Look
that
at
much?
The dude's got a 24-pack. Like, the dude's healthy. He knows health. That's the guy.
So I'm going to go with somebody. We try to keep this pretty recent, right? Mm-hmm. I'm going with somebody back in 1965.
Oh.
I'm going Ray Graves. He was the Florida head coach who had the inspiration to invent Gatorade.
That's a great pick, Brady.
That's a
great pick.
That's like my one serious, it makes sense pick. So Ray Graves, the Florida head coach from 1965, who had the idea to invent Gatorade, you're going to be the Secretary of Health and Human Services.
This was one of the few where I straight up for whatever reason just couldn't come up with anything. So Lane Kiffin, congratulations. This is your
because
new.
Why, Lyle?
Hey, that's kind of what Trump did with DeVos for education. He was just like you. So
there you go. All right, guys, we got Secretary of Housing and Urban Development.
So this one I couldn't settle on one person. I picked 3 people. I don't know any of their names, but I picked Reggie Bush's agent and his parents because he got them a house. Reggie didn't. Reggie's innocent. Give him his Heisman back. But yeah, the agent got his parents a nice house. Yeah, talk about housing and development. There you go. Reggie Bush's agent and parents. Easy.
Oh,
welcome to the cabinet.
This one was easy for me. I went Cliff Kingsbury. Look at that guy's house. Come on. Think about what he could do for everybody else.
That's a good point.
That's Lyle. That's actually a really good point. I like that. So who I'm going with mine is I'm going another team, right? I'm going 2001 and 2002 Bowling Green because that's where Urban Meyer got his first head coaching job and technically was the start of the urban development.
That's clever.
There you go.
It's clever. I like it.
Yeah.
I not the same as Josh, but I went down the same path. I went with good old Uncle Pete Carroll, even though I don't think he had really any involvement. But Pete Carroll knew a lot of things going on down there. So Pete Carroll. And then he knew what was coming. He said, I'm going to get out of here and avoid all the trouble. So bye. All right, guys, we got a Secretary of Transportation.
Hop on the train and blare that horn. I've got Herm Edwards. Hop on the Herm train, baby. Secretary of Transportation.
My Secretary of Transportation is a guy that not only would lead game-winning drives, but also drives anywhere when necessary if it means to get a win. That's Deshaun Watson. Not only did he lead a national championship game-winning drive, when he got to the NFL And what was it? He was sick for a game, and he didn't want to get anybody else sick. He straight up drove 10 hours in a van to get to the game from, I think it was Houston to Jacksonville. So
Yeah,
that's mine.
My Secretary of Transportation is a guy who, Lyle stuck with the ground game. I'm going to go with the guy who's going to air it out, and that's going to be Patrick Mahomes. I think he's, any Texas Tech quarterback from the last 20 years could be transportation. I originally had Deion Sanders because, he'll just run right past you. But I think Patrick Mahomes is more of a relevant guy for the recency bias here. So I'm going to go Pat Mahomes. Patrick.
Yeah, this one I'm thinking of. I want to go fast. I want to go fast. I'm thinking of the fastest player I've ever seen on the football field. So we talked about him about 5 minutes ago. But let's stick on the topic of Reggie Bush. I'll have him as the Secretary of Transportation because this guy, give him the ball, he'll go a 4-4 or a 4-3-3, whatever his 40 was back a decade ago. Or we can have, if I would have used Lane Kiffin, I would use Lane Kiffin here for the lane train. But I already used him. We can't have two positions, so unfortunately, no. So Reggie Bush for my Secretary of Transportation. Guys, we have 4 categories left. So after we end this, we're going to have time for about 10 or 15 minutes of a Q&A. So if you guys have any questions out there you'd like to hear our thoughts on, college football related, NFL draft related, anything related, hit us up in the live chat. Hit us up in the super chat. Anything you guys want. Like I said, 10 or 15 minutes of answering questions. We got 4 categories to go. Guys, this one is the Secretary of Energy.
We got a comment from Peter that said ASU homers. Well, you're not going to like this one. Secretary of Energy, I've got Sparky the Sun Devil. Dude always has energy. He's always doing push-ups. He's got a pitchfork. He in the intro video, it's called Stomp the Bus. He comes down from the sun. He comes down from the sun, and there's like an electrical storm all across Phoenix. ASU is also super high up in sustainability, #1 in innovation. ASU's got like solar panels on I think every single university building in Tempe. So I think that's a pretty efficient way to get some energy. So I'm going with Sparky the Sun Devil.
Brady, I'll let you go before me for this one.
So this one for me was I had an immediate answer, but I changed it. I originally put Johnny Manziel because he's one of the most energetic, fun players we've seen on the field. But then I was thinking more recent and thinking more close to home. And I'm thinking, well, who's the most energetic coach we have in college football right now? And that's Tom Allen. So Tom Allen has got to be the Secretary of Energy.
I need to start going first in these damn things.
That's why I let you go first. I didn't want to steal your answer for that exact reason because I have Tom Allen. I have Tom Allen too.
And I also have Tom Allen.
Let's go.
How about I'll change it from Tom Allen. Who was the wasn't there a coach like a year or two ago where he straight up like was hitting different
LSU strength coach?
Was that the same guy? Because he used to be at Lafayette. He was at Louisiana and he would like headbutt players. I remember during a bowl game and he was like bleeding from the head.
Yeah,
but he was the. I just remember him at Louisiana. He was their strength coach. So maybe it's the same guy.
Last year was LSU's strength coach. I just grabbed hold of the video. He grabbed
player.
the player by the face mask. I think it was Patrick Queen he may have grabbed and just bashed his head into him.
So I'm gonna go with that guy. All right, guys. Secretary of Education.
This is another one that I probably had a tough time with settling on one person. One is I'm going to have 2 secretaries of education. The first is somebody we already talked about today, got a nice extension. Pat Fitzgerald. Northwestern's a great university, really tough school to get into. And the Northwestern football team historically has a pretty high graduation rate, as does the athletic department as a whole. But he's not going to need some help. He's going to need someone that has had insane graduation and GPA marks in his program. And that was evident from a nice graphic that came out from the University of Texas 2 years ago. I'm taking Tom Herman. He got his program to a program high 2.8 GPA a couple of years ago. And that was a huge mark for the University of Texas to have a C average and be barely eligible to play. So I'm taking Tom Herman because if that's the mark we're aiming for, then that's the guy for this position. So I'm going to take one guy with a prestigious university and then another one at Texas.
OC, you went the SEC Arizona State type mentality. I'm going like high standard mentality here. I'm going Justin Herbert. Like this guy had a 4.0, president of the fishing club. This one was easy for me.
the fishing club is your academic standard?
Well, 4-0.
I'm sorry. Here, how about this? He was a Campbell Award winner, which is the academic Heisman.
I was almost thinking Brady White, but I figured somebody else might go
It
there.
was almost Brady White.
And also, even though this test is kind of outdated, I think he had one of the highest Wonderlic tests ever.
He did.
So, yeah.
Josh, you just said Brady White, which popped in my head. Kyle Williams. He's a guy, ASU receiver, wants to be like a brain surgeon, but I didn't. A doctor. I didn't go Kyle Williams. He's an honorable mention for mine. I'm going to go Andrew Luck, one of the smartest, nerdiest guys in all of football history. Has his own book club now. Is just a big nerd. Has got the great laugh and the neck beard and all that. And one of the nastiest tackles I've ever seen a quarterback make. Sorry, Josh, that was against USC. But hey, you got to embrace it and accept it there.
Tackle.
So I'm going.
Gnarly.
It was sick. I'm going Andrew Luck for my Secretary of Education.
I had one answer, and Brady had a good one earlier we talked about, and it's similar to the one I had, so I'm going to go with two. For mine, I just put whoever is in charge at Harvard, because I went
Whoever.
right.
Ryan Fitzpatrick.
That might be a little tough, so instead of whoever's in charge of Harvard, I put Ryan Fitzpatrick just because he did graduate from there. Not only is he probably the smartest player in the NFL, he's the coolest player in the NFL, so I'm going to go with Ryan Fitzmagic there. Guys, we got two more. We got the Secretary of Veteran Affairs.
This was a tough one. So I went and looked at, I already knew who had the most, but I went and looked at the schools that have the most NFL draft picks, guys that have moved on. And it's USC is number one. So I thought, okay, well, let's look at like USC's coaches and what they've done to put guys in the NFL. And Pete Carroll is not, I don't think is the best USC coach of all time. I think it would probably be John McKay. But Pete not only put tons of guys into the NFL at a big time period for the NFL, but he also progressed to the NFL himself. He's been an NFL head coach at three different in three different franchises, and he's still there now. So I decided to go with Pete Carroll as my Secretary of Veterans Affairs.
This was another one for me. Once the name popped into my head, it's like, oh, it has to be this guy. Because, well, this guy's a veteran, all right. Taylor Martinez is my Secretary of Veterans Affairs. That guy somehow found a way to never leave college football until recently. So he was there forever. He knows about being a veteran. He's got experience. He's seasoned. Taylor Martinez.
Josh, I went with a similar mindset what you did and I looked at, which coach currently has the most players in the NFL. And that's Nick Saban. So I'm going Nick Saban, who currently has 56 players in the NFL as of the end of this last year on a roster. So my Veterans Affairs is Nick Saban.
I got someone who might be a veteran himself. He's probably been around for every war imaginable, and that's I'm going with Lou Holtz as my Secretary of Veteran Affairs because, like I said, the dude's probably been around for every war imaginable for there to be veterans. So for that reason, I'm out. All right, guys, we got our final one right now. The Secretary of Homeland Security.
So we've got the Secretary of Defense kind of running the military for me, and that would be that's Brent Venables, and I think Lyle had him too. But now I'm looking for Homeland Security. So while we've got stuff going on overseas, we're throwing the ball downfield, we're trying to get in the end zone. We need somebody to protect the home front. And for me, we got to protect the quarterback. We got to protect the people in the backfield. So for my Secretary of Homeland Security, I am going Penei Sewell. Best offensive line product we've seen at least in the last 10, 15 years and possibly ever. I think he's a perfect fit. Penei Sewell, rounding out my cabinet.
I've got two for this, and I'm bringing out the Civil War for this one. Aaron Feld, who I said I'd get back to, Oregon strength coach, is one who, again, try and stop that guy. The other one, guy by the name of Adley Rushman. Now, some of you might say, well, Lyle, he played the wrong sport. You're thinking of the wrong sport. No, I'm not. He used to kick for Oregon State, and his claim to fame on the gridiron. His claim to fame on the gridiron was he made a tackle on Christian McCaffrey on a kickoff return to save a touchdown. That guy's an athlete.
Like former number one overall pick, Adley Rushman.
Adley Rushman.
Correct.
He was their kicker.
Like MLB's current number 2 prospect and former number 1 pick, Adley Rushman, kicked for Oregon State football and stopped Christian McCaffrey from housing a kick return for a touchdown.
And I believe he was a kickoff specialist. So he didn't kick field goals and didn't punt. I'm pretty sure he was just kickoffs. Yeah,
I think you're right.
Adam Vinatieri tackling Herschel Walker in the NFL, which he did.
Exactly.
So are you done, Lyle?
Yeah, go ahead.
That's a hell of a good answer. I didn't know that. That's a really good random fact you can pull there. For my homeland security, I thought of home field advantage. And I thought, what college has one of the best home field advantages, or what schools has one of the best home field advantages in all of college football? And I'm going with the University of Nebraska as a whole, 375 straight sellouts, not including this last year. We're not going to count that, but the longest streak in all of college football. It's like 30, 40 years, whatever it may be.
No, it goes back to the early 60s, I think.
Is it? So
yeah,
50, 60 years, whatever it may be. So I'm going Nebraska for homeland security for having all those home sellout games.
I like it. I mean, guys, I want someone to protect my home. So I was trying to think of the best, defensive players we've seen in college football over the last few years. And I went with this guy because he, questionable move on his part a few years back. But Myles Garrett, we saw what happens when you can tick him off. And he doesn't care about potentially killing you. So if I need someone to defend my home, Myles Garrett would be my pick there. And guys, I think that officially wraps up our college football presidential cabinet. So some great guesses, some great ones. Well done. A lot of people in the comments are having fun with this. A lot of people were sending theirs. It was literally like Lee Corso for essentially
all of them.
For every answer and like that. So that was a whole lot of fun. Guys, we have about 15 minutes left for a Q&A. So you guys can hit us up in the live chat with those questions. Any questions you got, there's one you really want to hear our thoughts on, hit us up in the super chat like our man Brett did right here. Going back to our early discussion from NCAA football earlier, should legend teams like the 2007 Boise State team, the one that knocked off Oklahoma in the Fiesta Bowl, be in the game? Yes. Having legend teams at NCAA, that would be so cool.
It's kind of like, when you played the old Madden 07 or like Madden 08 or like some of the old 2K games, you could toggle. It was like, hey, let's go to Alabama. And then you can hit a button. It's like, you want to play as 2014 Alabama? Do you want to play as 2016 Alabama? So yeah, you should 100% have those in the game.
Yeah, for sure.
So. I wonder how far back they would go. I wonder if you were to do something like that, I realistically think you're probably only getting teams from the 2000s. I would be surprised to see further teams that go further back because, at that point, I mean, I think it's already tough to say, 2002 Miami's better than 2020 Alabama. I think it's incredibly difficult to be like 1974 USC versus 2020 Alabama. So I think that you're probably
the original Rutgers team.
The OG Rutgers team, the birthplace of college football. I think you're probably only if they are going to do it, which I think they should. I think the furthest back you're going to see is like 2000, 2001 maybe. But I'm here for it.
100%.
Yeah, that'd be a lot of fun. Again, guys, if you have any questions like this, you guys can hit us up in the super chat. $1, $2, however much you'd like. You can hear our thoughts. There's a lot of comments going on for the Q&A. We want to get to as many as possible. This way, it guarantees your question to be answered. We're going to go over to Twitter right now, guys. We have a few questions on Twitter. Make sure to follow us on Twitter at the HHShow_, because if you ask us a question on Twitter, you guys get top dibs. You guys get top priority over there. So, guys, a few questions to rapid fire through here. Our man MC Mets 23, thoughts on Tom Brady throwing the Super Bowl trophy?
Can I jump in here and say it's the greatest thing I've seen with the trophy?
Yeah.
It's a trophy. It deserves to be celebrated. No one gets mad when people drink beer out of the Stanley Cup. So I think the Super Bowl trophy and the picture that the Bucs photographer Kyle Zedeker took of the trophy in midair, upside down. He took it from behind Gronk. You've all seen the photo. Major props to him because that's one of the coldest photos I've ever seen.
I think I understand why
the trophy I've seen.
I understand why people are upset about it. Personally, I'm fine with it. My only issue, if I even have one, is that it was on a boat. Like, what if it didn't get to the other boat and it ended up in the water? Like, that's an issue.
Water, by the way.
Huh?
50 feet. It's like 50 feet deep.
Yeah, so I think that's an issue. But again, like, kind of what Brady said.
Brady throwing the trophy.
Yeah, come on.
I went to a Stanley Cup party and the keeper of the cup was there and he was like off the record, obviously, telling us some stuff that some people who have won the Stanley Cup have done with the trophy. And I'm like, how do you let them do that? And he's like, we're not supposed to. So it's like, if people are upset about that, you should do some research on what has happened to the Stanley Cup. I understand why people are upset that it's on a boat because that thing would have just dropped in the water. But other than that,
knowing Gronk would have jumped in and tried to get it.
He would have swam all the way to the bottom to pick it up.
So, Josh, a quick Stanley Cup story. Sorry, Lau, but in IndyCar, they have a 2-seater. It's like a show car, and there's a seat in the back. The Stanley Cup was at the Indy 500 this last year, and they put it in the back of the car and took it laps around the track.
Jeez.
It was awesome.
Some stuff they've done with the cup has been scary. Like they've taken it out on lakes before in like small boats, and people have gotten very close to dropping it in the water, and you're never going to get it back.
I'm guessing we got asked this question because people have seen the video on Twitter of the lady that was like all upset about it and complaining about it because her family made the trophy and whatever. Well, I think her family made the first trophy. Like they didn't make this trophy. So I don't know what they're so mad about this specifically. And for the people in general that are mad about it, again, like Josh said, unless Tom Brady actually like lost it in the water, which would have been a story of its own.
One of his other ones.
Yeah, like it's fine. Like it's fine. Let them celebrate. They won.
Yeah, no, I thought that was awesome. I really liked it. All right, guys, don't draft a running back in the top 10. Wants to know what college football team is best set up to pull a 2019 LSU in the upcoming 2021 season. So, guys, give me one team you guys think could come out of nowhere and win the Natty.
I promise this is not my burner account. Let's see.
No, well, if it was your burner account, it would have said don't draft a running back or a
Big 12 player.
Big 12.
Oh, that too. Although I should probably, I need to get.
And what were your last two draft picks? Wasn't it, Rashad Penny in the first round and then a Big 12 defensive?
Well, they drafted 2 Big 12 defensive players in a row in the first round, but I should probably give Jordan Brooks some credit because he was actually pretty good for a rookie. So let's see, what team could come out of nowhere? I mean, Iowa State wouldn't really be out of nowhere, but I don't think people expect them to win the national championship. To come out of nowhere, I mean, I feel like USC could be one, especially with the recruiting class they brought in. So I guess that would be mine.
Yeah, I don't really have a team that's going to come out of nowhere. I don't think Oregon's there. I don't think USC is there, but I like that pick to kind of come out and be really good. I'm not really sure. I mean, I think if we're talking LSU, are we talking come out and just dominate everybody and send a bunch of dudes to the draft, or are we kind of talking about like expected them to be good but not one of the best teams ever? Because if that's the case, kind of like what Lyle said, I guess Iowa State maybe, USC maybe. I think Notre Dame could be pretty good. But I know that they're going to lose some pieces too. So I don't know if I really have an answer.
I thought Iowa State and Notre Dame, but I think those are pretty two common ones. I'm going to go with the team that was, in the top 10 this last year too, but got no love. I'm going to go Texas A&M. I just think they're poised. They're in a spot to be able to make a jump. They were sitting at 5 or 6 this last year, pretty much all season long, but never cracked their way into the top 4. So I'm going to go Texas A&M to finally get their way up into the top 4 and maybe even to the championship. I'm not saying they're going to make the championship, but I'm just saying they have a good chance. Hopefully,
Peter from earlier is still watching because Arizona State, because we're all homers that like Arizona State. No, we got a few more guys right here. We got this isn't an organized pod. What's going to be the 2024 World Series matchup? Not the 2021, not 2022, not 2023, but 2024.
Spencer Torkelson and the Detroit Tigers. And I don't know.
2024.
I'll go mine. I'll go Dodgers and the M's. The Dodgers are still going to be winning titles, and the M's, they'll be going for their third consecutive World Series appearance. But all losses, but it'll be the third consecutive World Series appearance.
What, are all the losses coming to the Dodgers? Is that what you're saying?
The Dodgers are going to win 5 straight.
The Dodgers are going to be going for title number 5 in a row. In a row.
I mean, look, 2024 is supposed to be the window. If you're talking about the Mariners trying to make a run, hey, if they have Trevor Story come next year, or I hate to do this to you guys, but Corey Seager potentially.
No, you won't have Javi Baez.
Well, I want like 2 marquee guys because they're currently paying absolutely nobody, and this free agent class is loaded. So yeah, sure, Dodgers Mariners 2024. Why not?
I know that this is 2024. I'll go. It's kind of boring. I'll go Dodgers Yankees. I think the Yankees will still be sticking around by them too. If it's not Dodgers Yankees, I'll go.
That Yankees lose.
The Yankees lose.
I mean,
I'll
to be fair, by 2024, the best player in baseball will probably be Jason Dominguez, if anybody knows who that is. So yeah, I can see it.
Yeah, if I'm gonna go anywhere different, as much as it pains me to say, if I don't want to pick those two teams, I'll go Padres and screw it, Tigers.
I'm jumping on Padres. I'm jumping on Padres, Tigers too.
The Las Vegas expansion team versus the Nashville expansion team. All right, guys. We got about
two great cities for expansion.
We got about 10 minutes left to knock through as many YouTube questions as we can. Fallen Hero wants to know who would win a hypothetical matchup, my favorite, 2007 Boise State or 2017 UCF?
We know Blake loves his hypotheticals.
I do.
I'll go first and say Boise.
Yeah, I'd say Boise State.
I was going to say Boise as well.
I'll go against the grid and take UCF, which is a good transition to our next question from Reed Pribble. What do you think Mackenzie Milton can bring to Florida State? I think I saw something the other day that he's – yeah, let's hope. I think I saw something that he's officially cleared to go. He's going to be practicing. I don't know if he'll win the starting quarterback job, but let's say he wins that job. What's he bringing to Florida State?
This might not be anyone's favorite answer, but I think it's a realistic answer. Quarterback competition. I don't think people realize how important that really can be, especially in the offseason. And they've already got a few quarterbacks there, and add him into the mix. And I think whoever emerges as the starting quarterback is going to be 100% deserving of being the starting quarterback, regardless if it's him, if it's Purdy. There were some games when Travis looked pretty good this past year. So I don't know. I think he brings solid competition.
Yeah, like seriously, for his sake, I just hope he's healthy and gets a real shot, because I think that's priority one. So hopefully he's healthy and he's competing, and if he gets back out there and gets playing time, that would be awesome.
Hey, first of all, big round of applause for Mackenzie Milton for getting healthy, everybody. Big round of applause. Come on. Blake, I didn't see you clap. I didn't see you. There we go. Okay. I think Mackenzie Milton, I think he's one of those guys where he was so good before the injury, and I think it's going to be something where we're going to see a resurgence, and we're going to see a re-energized Mackenzie Milton. You know, it's going to be tough. Yeah, it's okay to be able to be cleared for practice, but I think once you get in the live game setting, he's going to have some hesitation because, you know, the last time he was on a football field, he had the injury. So I think Josh brought up a really good point, is he can bring some quarterback competition. They have a couple guys in the quarterback room already. We saw Florida State rotate out a few this last year. So I really think a guy like Mackenzie Milton, who showed that he was a good player at UCF, I think it could be a pretty good fit at Florida State.
This is going to be like the Alex Smith situation all over again, where every time Mackenzie Milton drops back, we're all going to be going, as the offensive line just literally allows him to get sacked 8 times in the opening game. He'll be fine. He was a Heisman not a Heisman finalist, but he was like top 7 in Heisman voting 2 years in a row. So if Florida State can have any sort of offensive line, if their team could do anything better than what they've done the last few years, they're not going to be competing for the ACC title, but they're definitely going to be better than what they've been in years past. Guys, unfortunately, no question from Manny C. Manny did donate $1, so thank you, Manny, for your donation.
A couple questions before.
Let's see if I can find it. Manny C, where are you? Josh, can you find Manny C? I cannot find Manny C. Oh, here we go. Manny C. I don't know if this is – oh, here we go. Every year, the experts state that this is the best team ever, which is what we do. We do every year on this podcast after whoever wins the Natty, Bama this year, etc. Can the teams playing in the past hang with today's teams? Example, the 01 Hurricanes, SC in 03 and 04. How about the teams of the 80s or 90s? I mean, it's such different styles of football, which unfortunately we'll never know. I mean, I think that'd be fantastic to put up, like the 2001 Miami Hurricanes team that I think, depending on how this LSU team turns out from 2 years ago, is going to have the most NFL talent on a roster of all time. How would they fare against 2019 LSU? I'd love to see. We'll never know. But I tend to think It's a matter of who do you think excels more at their current style of football. If you were to take one of these dominant teams from the 80s, do you think that their style of football would be that much better than, Alabama scoring 50 points a game? Or do you think just, a team scoring this many points would just be too much for them to handle? But mind you, these teams in the 80s, 90s, early 2000s, they took defense seriously. So I don't know if we'd have these high-powered offenses doing what they're doing now. So it's a great question. Unfortunately, we'll never really know. That's one thing that I would love to see, though, that somehow some of these teams would fare against each other.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I think that it's weird because I always tend to favor the 01 Miami teams and the 03, 04 SC teams, whatever, because those teams have still kind of stood the test of time, at least up to this point, where, like Blake said, every year we're talking about a new team that's the best ever. 2017 Clemson, or 2018 Clemson, 2019 LSU, 2020 Bama. Every year is this the best team ever? But the way that I look at it is, Alabama this year, every game was like, Alabama's probably going to win. I don't know how much they're going to win by. I mean, they scored 100 points on Ole Miss, but Ole Miss scored a heck of a lot of points too. But then you look back at the 01 Miamis and the 03, 04 USCs, and it's like, regardless of who they're playing, not only is it going to be a blowout, it's going to be a slaughter. Dudes on the other team are going to get hurt. Like, it is going to be an absolute beatdown on both sides of the ball. So, yeah, exactly. I mean, it was just every game was going to be ugly. So I tend to favor those teams. But I think it really just depends on what type of game you get. And it depends on the matchup, too. I mean, it doesn't mean that one team getting beat is worse than the other. I think it just really depends on the matchup. And the one thing that I always think of is how we all watched ASU beat number 5 Washington a couple years ago. No doubt in my mind, Washington is 10 times better than that ASU team, but ASU knew how to exploit them, and they did. It just depends on the matchup.
Last year.
Yeah, it just depends on the matchup.
Or 2 years ago.
01 Hurricanes, 03, 04 SC. I mean, I think all those teams could hang around with the current teams now, and I think they'd all put up good fights. I'm in the boat that I think 2019 LSU is probably the best team ever. So again, they play a defense like 01 Miami or those 03, 04 SC teams. It might be close, but man, like if that offense is playing teams from the 80s, like I always stand on the side of like I think they would win by 25 points if they're playing a team from the 80s.
I think one of the things you have to look at is, all right, it's how much time are you going to give them to prepare? So how about this? Say you get this 01 Miami team or one of these defensive teams from the 80s.
It's BYU, Coastal Carolina, Part 2. You have 2 days to prepare.
You got 2 days to prepare. I'm telling you. Say you play a team like LSU, or let's pull a different team that wasn't the greatest ever. Let's pull Louisville from a few years back with Lamar Jackson, one of the most explosive, dynamic quarterbacks we've ever seen. How is a team from the 80s going to stop a guy like that? You're not.
See, that's what's so interesting is because these 01 Miamis and the 03, 04 SCs, these are the types of teams that kind of sit in the in-between period, at least defensively, going up against you're going to get 2 running backs that could run the ball every play, or you're going to get a dynamic quarterback. Like, you look at those 2 teams, and when, for example, you look at SC's offense, and SC had kind of had like the Reggie Bush, Lendale White. They also had Matt Leinart as their quarterback, who was an insane passing quarterback. And a lot of teams were like that back then. Like Texas was like that too. So I think that if you had like a team like Louisville, like Brady's saying, going up against a team from the 70s or 80s that would be preparing for a run every single play, you're going to get very different results. Again,
Manny did just bring up a good point. He said, well, Vince Young at Texas was a dual threat quarterback. So yeah. But I think, those 80s, 90s, the 2000s teams, I think could hang around with a running quarterback. But you go 80s, 90s, you're not gonna stop. Hell, even Trevor Lawrence is dual threat enough to exploit those teams.
Yeah, I mean, thinking back all these great teams, I do think I agree with Lyle. Where LSU, I think that team just separates. We always talk about how good is this Alabama team. I don't know what's going on here. What?
Josh and I look at the same thing.
Yeah.
Lyle doesn't have a clue.
Anyway, what's the next question, Blake?
I have no clue what's happening. And we got a few from Stephen Smith, and then we'll go to short round 2 around this bad boy out. I think we've been asked this in the past, but we'll just do a quick one. He comes in with the super chat. What are your thoughts on who's going to make the Big 12 championship and making it to the playoff? I'll go first with this one. I think it's going to be Iowa State, Oklahoma. I think if it's not those two teams, something went wrong for one of the teams, or Texas is in fact back. But I think Iowa State, Oklahoma is the consensus. And one of those teams is going to make the playoff. They won't have two, but there's going to be one Big 12 team that's in the playoff next year.
Yeah, I agree. And I'll go Oklahoma just because I think that on paper they're better than Iowa State.
I would agree with you on that one, too. I think I jumped in because Lyle's all staticky. I would agree with you on that one. I think Oklahoma's a better team than Iowa State. So I really don't know. The Big 12 is so weird because it's like, hey, we're just going to take the top two and go play. But I'm going to go, I kind of like what Texas is doing. Even though they got a new head coach, I think Bijan Robinson's going to be one of the most dynamic players in all of college football this year. He's going to be a guy to look out for.
I think Oklahoma will get in. It'll be Iowa State, Oklahoma, and I think Oklahoma wins.
All right, we got one more from Stephen Smith. This one's actually directed towards Lyle. Stephen comes in with a super chat donation. Lyle, will you change your tune next year if the Big 12 shows a good defense for the next football season? Will you also watch the Big 12 games for the next football season? This is something we briefly mentioned, I think, in a show a few weeks ago where I think the Big 12 had better overall stats defensively across the board than the SEC did. They weren't number one, but they were moving on up. West Virginia, they were a top 10 defense. So, and Lyle's talked about it.
I believe they were number one, weren't they? At least for most of the season, they were.
Yeah, for the first month or two, they were number one, and things kind of hit the fan. And Lyle has experienced it firsthand that taking defensive players from the Big 12 can work in your favor. They can pan out. So, Lyle, one more. Again, it was a one-hit wonder. We're not going to jump the gun too much, but if we can get a second consecutive season of great defense from the Big 12, will you change your tune?
Yeah, but let's actually see it happen. That's my whole thing. Is, for example, Oklahoma, when they got to the playoff against LSU, they lost 63-28. That's what I mean. I'm not saying you have to win, but you let a team like that score 63 points on you. That's the issue. Look, it's an offensive game, and football's just changed, but the Big 12 still kind of feels like it falls behind a little bit. Although, again, to Steven's point, teams like West Virginia significantly improved this year. So, look, yeah, let's see it for a full season. Let's see a full season of improved defense, and also, like I harp on a lot, let's see some of these Big 12 players actually turn into stars at the next level. Because, like I've talked about, which has been one of my talking points, it's been a long time since there have been real stars. Again, guys like Earl Thomas and Ndamukong Suh and players like that. It's been since guys like that. It's been 8 years since there's been a real star out of the Big 12.
I was going to say it's been so long since it happened. That's when Nebraska wasn't even in the conference they're currently in right now. That's when Nebraska was in the Big 12 when they had Ndamukong Suh. So it just goes to show even better. It's been that long. Guys, we have time for one final question, which means you know exactly who it's coming from. That short round this week, he wants to know, I assume short round, I want to give assumptions here. How many 5-year-olds could you take on in a no weapons hand-to-hand fight? Now, this one I was thinking of because this can mean a lot of things. Are we talking these are some porkers. These are some porker 5-year-olds. They got like
you and me, Blake, you and me 5-year-olds.
Are they some weakling, something like Garrett Otto type of 5-year-olds where they probably got 20 pounds on them? If I'm finding a bunch of little 5-year-old Garrett Ottos, I think I can take about 12 to 15 or so. But if we're getting some 5-year-old Big J's, maybe 3 to 4. I think 3 to 4 max.
Let's go a mix. Whatever number you pick, if it's an even number, it's half of each.
Half and half.
Yeah.
I think I could probably take on.
I've got a strategy here.
8. I think a good 8.
8 to 10. I think is solid.
I've got a strategy here, and I'm going to take this, I believe, from Family Guy.
Can I guess? Oh, never mind.
is you sort of back yourself into a bathroom stall, and they only have one way to come in, so you just get them coming in.
I was gonna guess that you just get on one of those twirly things at a playground like they do in Step Brothers and just goes like this and then go around. Yeah, I would say I could probably. I think yours is probably a better strategy. I think I could take out 8 to 10.
Yeah, I would agree. Stamina is what's going to get you.
Yeah, and their stamina too. It's a 5-year-old. Is he taking a nap? Has he been on the playground? Has he eaten? Is he mad? It just depends. It's this one's a tough one.
Yeah, I don't like this question. We're like inciting violence. We're like short rounds trying to get us to incite violence.
Hey, short round. Yeah, there you go.
The 3'7", 40
dude.
pounds.
Oh,
Okay,
30.
What?
30.
No, I'll stick in your guys' category and say like 8 to 10.
I think 5 years old is that weird age where like they can walk, but they don't have great balance.
They're not 3. They're still 5. This is like kindergarten.
I know.
Yeah, no, this is easier to tell because my mom's a first grade teacher. So I mean, granted, all the kids in her class are I think like 6 years old or so. But I kind of like if I go into her class, I have an idea of the size. I think I'm changing my answer. I think I'm going to go with like 20 or so. If that entire class came now, granted, these are kids from Arcadia, California, so they're a little easier. But I think I could take them all down. I could take down Stacey Harris's first grade class with ease. I think if they're all coming at me.
I'm going to go 14. I'm going to go 14 to 16.
I like that range. I like the range.
Yeah.
Yes, Brady. No, they are not. But I think I'm going to go with 20. So that does wrap up this Q&A, and that wraps up this week's show of the Harris Highlight Show. Thank you guys so much for watching. You guys can find us on Twitter at the HHShow_. We're on Instagram at Harris Highlight Show. We're on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, all that fun stuff. You guys can become Patreon members for as little as $1 a month. We're going to be doing a group Skype call in the next few weeks if you want to talk some college football with us. We're going to be there. You guys can gain access to the Twitter group chat as well. I don't know. These guys are, wow. Brady said, Josh, do a handstand. Guys,
Come on, do a handstand.
Stay tuned in the coming weeks because we are going to be doing a March Madness bracket where you guys can win. You guys can come on the show, talk about how you won. And this show is completely going off the rail here, so I don't know what's happening. So, again, thank you guys so much for watching. Stay tuned on Twitter for when our next show is. It might be next Tuesday at 8 p.m. This year. It might not be. Make sure to follow us on Twitter. That way you guys have an idea. Do you guys have any parting words before we head out for the week?
I could probably do a somersault.
I'm very cold. Please send space heaters to Frisco, Texas.
Well, you can't plug it in.
I'm at my office and I have one plugged in. My apartment has no heat, no power. So send blankets to Frisco, Texas.
Like
Blankets
Josh,
and hugs.
Josh, did you want to preview your next creative idea for a show that you talked about? I don't know if it's like a teaser for people in the comments to tune into the next show or whenever we do it.
Shall I tease it?
Tease me, Josh.
Oh, I will. So maybe not next week, but in the future. We are going to be doing a full 22-man offense/defense starting lineup for your football team or for our college football teams featuring anybody and everybody in pop culture, science fiction, real life. As long as they're not football players or big-time professional athletes, it is fair game. You want Captain America as your starting quarterback? He can be. You want Joe Biden as your slot receiver? He can be. Anybody. So think about who you guys would put in there, and we're gonna do that.
I want the Hulk as my running back.
Also, one more. This isn't really necessarily a tease. This is me just telling you right now. Come NFL draft time, we are drinking. We are gonna get turned for the NFL draft. So
we're doing a watch party. We're doing a
live watch party during the first round of the NFL draft. So you guys want to drink with us? Come on the show. That might be happening. So a lot of fun stuff coming in the coming weeks, coming months. We also have guests coming. We have mock drafts coming. A whole lot of awesome content. So for Josh Schaefer, Lau Goldstein, Brady Klein, this has been Blake Harris on the Chateau in a beautiful 70-degree Monrovia, California. I am so warm. I'm sure Lyle is warm too. Thank you guys so much for watching. We'll be back here right this time next Tuesday, 8 p.m. Eastern, for another episode of the Harris Highlight.